Who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are, with all the new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From Monster Slams to dishing the rock to cleaning the glass, get behind your favorite players in the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking how many points your favorite player will have. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder have supplanted the Boston Celtics as the favorites to win the title on DraftKings at plus 225, with the Celtics right behind them at plus 235. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Thing. We are live.
All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Saturday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great start to your weekend. Well, for as long as I can remember, the Denver Nuggets have completely owned the Los Angeles Lakers. As someone who roots for that team, I've had to do some pretty uncomfortable shows over the years, including last year having to come up onto this stream right after Jamal Murray ended games with buzzer beaters, as the Nuggets have seemingly won a million games in a row against the Lakers. The one that they won was the down 3-0 in the series last year game in Los Angeles. It's a matchup the Nuggets have dominated, even as recently as this season, as they blew them out in Los Angeles in a second half avalanche that they didn't seem to have any chance to control. We're going to be breaking that game down from the perspective of both teams as the Lakers go into Denver and blow them out tonight. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also super helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. Don't forget about our brand new social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where we release content throughout the year. And last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in the YouTube comments so we can get to them on our Friday shows throughout the remainder of the season. All right, let's talk some basketball. So I want to be clear up front here. I don't think any single regular season matchup is any sort of sweeping declaration about what two teams could look like in the postseason. I would even go as far as to say a dominant entire regular season series between two teams wouldn't make that much of a difference. Famously, last year, the Phoenix Suns owned the Minnesota Timberwolves all regular season. They had a specific game plan that worked against them in the regular season, and then they got into the playoffs and got swept because the dynamics can change. And more often than not, what I'm looking at in these regular season situations is not so much what can happen in one single game, but rather the problems that either team present for each other. Those problems that they present are the things you can lean on during a 2-week-long playoff series to try to gain an advantage, right? I had a debate with a fellow Volume coworker of mine, Carson Breber from Nerd Sesh, the other day as we kind of talked about Denver versus LA and got into a bunch of different dynamics in that show. And one of the things that I was trying to emphasize was simply that everyone's focused on whether or not the Lakers can guard Jokic. And there's no doubt that Jokic presents a huge problem to this team. No one wearing a Lakers jersey can guard him one-on-one. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the defensive game plan the Lakers had, because I actually thought they did a really nice job on Jokic in this game. But one of the things that I kept trying to harp on was, like, everyone's focused on whether or not the Lakers can handle Jokic. Why is no one paying attention to the simple fact that on the other end of the floor, how is Denver going to guard the Lakers? There was a simple dynamic taking place in this game that was leading to the Nuggets being in rotation constantly and the Lakers being able to move the ball around for wide open threes for guys that are all pretty damn good knockdown, catch and shoot 3-point shooters. And it was the simple fact that when Luka Doncic would come off of a ball screen, Michael Malone was bringing Nikola Jokic up to the level of the screen. This is the coverage that the Nuggets use most frequently. This is the coverage that the Nuggets are going to use when they get into the playoffs. This is how they defend teams. They force you to skip the ball, and then they plan on their rotations trying to funnel you into shots that they're okay with, right? Well, when you bring Jokic up to the level, when you bring him up onto Luka out 25 feet from the basket, behind that is a 4-on-3. And it really starts with a simple dynamic, which is Jackson Hayes rolling to the rim and Denver having to decide whether they're going to tag him. When they tag him with Gordon, the skip pass is open. They try to play early in the game where they didn't tag him. Jackson had an easy, uncontested layup, a 7-footer under the basket with nobody within 15 feet of him on any side because they didn't tag him. So then Denver started tagging him with Gordon. Now it's a skip pass every single time. And who's in that corner? It's either Rui Hachimura, who's shooting over 50% on catch and shoot threes this year, or it's LeBron James, who can drive it for a dunk or drive it to make the next play. When they used Rui as a screener on Jokic, when Jokic was on Rui instead of Jackson, he's just popping. The pick and pop is always wide open unless you switch it or you rotate from the weak side. Rui was catching up at the top, wide open three, or a rotation, moving the ball around. Someone else is getting a wide open shot. Luka Doncic has this. He's one of the very best in the world at this. The Lakers have had guys like LeBron who can do this in the past, but because Luka can do it, it puts LeBron off the ball. And when you're dealing with an offense that has Jackson Hayes who can dunk everything under the basket, and LeBron, Rui, and Austin, who can all be knockdown catch and shoot guys, but can also drive closeouts and make plays, that can also cut along the baseline, that can also, you threw a good rotation, but guess what? Austin's a scorer. He can get buckets. LeBron's a scorer. Buckets. Rui's a scorer. So even when you rotate well, these guys are in advantages. You're asking high-level offensive players to score with a Nugget sprinting at them from like 10, 15 feet away. They tried a bunch of different things in this game. They tried going to a 3-2 zone there in the late third quarter, which was the only thing they actually did in this game that made the Lakers a little bit uncomfortable on offense. And it was because Jared Vanderbilt was in the game. And the 3-2 kind of forces Vando to do a lot of high-level skill stuff in the middle of the floor, which is not his game. And they were able to get a couple of stops there. But even then, they just took him out. Then they started screening the top man. They got a couple buckets against the 3-2 to start the fourth quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, they tried switching with Jokic, but that doesn't work. So they ended up having to double to help Jokic. They ended up just passing out of that and getting wide open threes. The Lakers are built for every single coverage they could possibly face. Even the two primary coverages we didn't talk about, switching and a deeper drop coverage, come with their own set of issues. If you switch, you're now asking Jokic to guard LeBron, Luka, and Austin on the perimeter all series. How's that going to work out for you? If you try the deep drop coverage, the deep drop coverage involves Jokic sitting further back in the ball screen. When he sits further back in the ball screen, he can keep the roll man in front. Well, there's two problems there. If it's Rui, he's popping, he's still wide open. But let's say you run that against Jackson. You've got Jackson running at you. You're keeping the ball in the front. You're staying out of rotation. But I'd argue Austin Reeves, LeBron James, and Luka Doncic is one of the best personnel groupings you'll find in the league for attacking a drop coverage. You want to let LeBron come screaming downhill against Jokic, backpedaling towards the rim? Rim protection's not his strength. You want to let Luka methodically work downhill? What does he do every single time? He just drops that shoulder, bumps you off, and hits that little bank shot from 5 feet. Austin Reeves is like a magician in the middle of the floor, hitting little 10, 15-footers, drawing fouls, doing all of the scoring stuff that he can do there in the middle of the floor. Like, there's a lot of like overthinking it that I've seen in terms of the way the Lakers have been covered. And look, I don't leave this game tonight thinking they're busting. I don't leave this game tonight thinking they might be that, but we need to see a lot more basketball. But there's a simple, basic reality with this roster now that people need to acknowledge, and that's that LeBron, Luka, and Austin are as good a set of shot creators as you find in the league. They lean into Luka on the ball, which we're going to get to when he's on the floor. But LeBron and Austin are so great playing off the ball. And then they've got all these guys that are play finishers. Dorian Finney-Smith, he's the 40% catch and shoot guy. Rui Hachimura, he's a 50% catch and shoot guy and a great baseline cutter and a guy that's got some high-level scoring moves. Jackson Hayes can finish everything around the rim. Even the guys like Gabe Vincent that you would look at as a somewhat average shooter, he's been shooting the ball pretty well. There's not really an answer there. I don't need to see much more to know that the Lakers are going to score. Whether or not they have the potential to get to the ultimate goal is going to come down to their ability to achieve peak unguardability. And that will require them to show a lot of success against elite switching teams, them to show a lot of success. Like, what if it is a team like Dallas and they sit Anthony Davis down in a big drop coverage and he's a guy that's sitting around the rim and that ends up being a problem? Like, they'll need to check a lot more boxes to get to that point. But I absolutely think that they can achieve that. They have the personnel to attack all of those different things that they can see. The last thing I want to talk about with the Lakers on offense before we move on, I loved how when Luka was on the floor, they leaned into him as the on-ball creator. This is something that we talked about a lot in the first week after the trade, which is that LeBron's turned himself into one of the best catch and shoot guys in the league. And you saw what he can do driving closeouts. He drove that closeout on the baseline and got a dunk. He drove a closeout and dunked all over Mark Williams last week. Or earlier this week, I should say. LeBron can play off the ball. Austin can play off the ball. All these guys can play off the ball. Luka can, but it's not like his strength. So I love the idea of Luka's on the floor. Let's just give him the ball, and he has one job. Just make the first read. They chase over the top. They sit back in a deep drop. His read is to methodically work downhill and get a nice, easy shot closer to the rim. They bring the screen defender up to the level. His job is to read the low man. Okay, they're tagging Jackson. I'm making the skip pass. They don't tag Jackson, or I ball fake to the skip pass. I'm dropping it to Jackson. He's got a dunk. He just has to make the first read. Oh, they're switching. Okay, well, I'm going to get a lesser defender on me now. Now that I got this lesser defender, I'm going to work to a place on the floor where I feel comfortable. And when I get there, I'm either going to take the easy shot that I can get, or if they bring a second defender, I'm going to make that next read. It's a pretty straightforward process from there. And then when Luka comes out of the game, LeBron and Austin can scale up their on-ball aggression the way they need to. And then they have just these short windows of time where they really need to test their bodies to create advantages. LeBron was super aggressive to the rim tonight. There was a specific play, a late shot clock play in the early fourth quarter against Zeke Naji, where LeBron kind of had a predicament. Clock's running down, and he had a triple threat against Naji at the top of the key. Before Luka came to town, LeBron's taking that three. You know why? Because he's got a lot of basketball left. And when you get to 5, 4, 3, 2 minutes left, he's going to be the guy that has to create all the shots. So he didn't really have a choice in times past, but to try to conserve energy by settling from time to time. That's no longer the case. He can go it's the early fourth quarter. I just got to carry this unit till about 7-6 minutes left. Then I get to go sit down. And when I come back, Luka's the guy that's going to be able to help me down the stretch. So you know what he does? He puts his head down and he tries to drive to the right. And Naji does a great job sliding with him. He's being physical and he's holding him up. And LeBron just keeps backing him down. Pump fake. Zeke leaves his feet, patiently waits for him to come down and banks it off the glass. It's an exertion of energy that LeBron would not have made in times past because he was trying to save his legs. One of the most jarring things about this game is okay, Jokic is checking out. Let's see who's on the floor now. Well, it's going to be Luka and LeBron, or it's going to be LeBron and Austin, or it's going to be Luka and Austin. It's wave after wave after wave of high-level shot creation. Again, they're going to have to achieve a level of peak unguardability from matchup to matchup, and they're going to have to maintain this type of defensive game planning that we've seen. But I think we would all be foolish, even though we don't know how good they're going to be yet. I think we would be foolish to not consider this team a threat. Of course they're a threat. How are you going to stop them from getting good shots? There's this interesting thing that happens in basketball games where everything is intricately connected. The offensive end is connected to defense transition. Defense transition is connected to defense. Defense is connected to offense transition. Offense transition is connected to offense. If you can create an advantage, you can play off of that. All four phases of the game are attached to each other. When you continually get great shot after great shot after great shot, it has an impact on the flow of the game. It has an impact on the rhythm of the game. Like, for instance, one of the things that we're going to talk about when we talk about the Lakers defensive scheme, they were trying to shade everything towards Russell Westbrook, Christian Brown, and Aaron Gordon making threes, just like I said they would. That's exactly how teams are going to try to guard Denver in the postseason. And they made 8 threes. Those guys made 8 threes, and it still didn't matter. Because it doesn't become about making them pay a couple of times. It becomes about keeping up. You're in a foot race now. You're in a shooting contest. It's a shootout. And you're asking Christian Brown, Aaron Gordon, and Russell Westbrook to keep up making shots. When I look back to some of the most dominant Luka playoff performances ever, Game 7 against Phoenix, Game 5 against Minnesota, many of them come down to he sucks the life out of the other team by strangling the flow of the game, by continually generating fantastic shots, and it allowing you to set your defense, it leading to the opponent not being confident, because how can you be super confident when Luka is like strangling the game? It becomes very difficult to do, and there's only a handful of players in the league that have the ability to go punch for punch with a guy like him. And with Luka, or with Jokic, JJ had a game plan. So let's talk about that game plan. One of the things I talked about, and for the record, I actually do think that in the big picture, Denver will find more ways to score against the Lakers. They have too big of an advantage in Jokic. One of the big things I think they could do is just, when they're bringing that double from the baseline, Jokic has just got to look to score. Like, he just needs to shoot and shoot and shoot. And even when he misses, he can follow it and get the rebound. He's too much bigger than all those guys. He's got to try to force his way through sometimes, I think, a little bit more. But one of the things I talked about, even though Denver presents issues to the Lakers, for 17 games coming into tonight, and I haven't seen the updated stats, but I would assume it's tonight after 18 games too, the Lakers have been the very best defense in all of NBA basketball. That doesn't mean they're going to strangle Jokic for a 7-game series, but what it does mean is they're probably going to get some stops. The two things that I talked about when we talked about the Laker defense were they've got good defensive personnel, better defensive personnel than people think. Vando's a great defender. DFS is a good defender. Gabe's a good defender. LeBron, when he's engaged, is a good defender. Austin, when he's engaged, is a good defender. They've got good defenders. But the second piece of it was defensive game planning, which has been a strength, an under-discussed strength of JJ Redick's coaching job this entire season. The game plan with Jokic was simple. Started with Rui on him, put Jackson on Aaron Gordon and help. But regardless of who was on him, because there were transition cross matches and other different things where the Lakers would end up with kind of different matchups. But it started with fronting the post. Anytime anyone else had the ball, if Jokic was trying to post, the guy guarding him was getting in front. Fronting the post is a very difficult job. Jokic is good at sealing people on his backside. You got to use swim moves. You got to move your feet quickly. You got to sit low. You got to squat down and push him back to force an over-the-top pass. What happens with an over-the-top pass? The Miami Heat are the best at this. You bracket it with backside help to shrink the passing window. It makes it much harder. Now, one of the ways that Jokic was countering that was he was catching the ball further out, which is one of the upsides of fronting. When you front the post, a lot of times it forces the offensive player to come further and further out so that he has less traffic behind him that he can create a passing angle. Once the ball came into Jokic, they did the exact same thing every time. The guy who was fronting the post would quick disengage and get behind. Then he would start playing the inside shoulder, the paint side shoulder of Jokic, and try to force him towards the baseline. As soon as Jokic spun out of the baseline, He would spin down towards the baseline, and the Lakers would double off of Aaron Gordon, whoever it was that was in the dunker spot, from the baseline. Then whoever was guarding the weak side shooter would dig down on Aaron Gordon. They were packing the paint, doubling on that baseline side. They did a good job of attacking Jokic with that double, so they got a lot of deflections. That was a big part of turnovers. Turnovers were a huge part in this game as Denver and Jokic tried to solve this problem and kept throwing the ball into arms as the Lakers would go running out the other way looking to score. And look, here's the thing. You got to concede stuff. If you're going to front Jokic, bracket Jokic, double him on the baseline side, guys are going to get open. And guys made shots. There's a version of this game where Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and Russell Westbrook don't make 8 threes, and the Lakers are up 25 in the first half. They gave up. They gave up some of those looks, but they never overreacted. They stuck to their game plan. They stayed disciplined and did their jobs. They tilted the shots towards other players, and that's the game plan for JJ. What JJ is saying is we're going to have to give up some stuff, but good luck keeping up with us on the other end of the floor, because you're going to have Aaron Gordon taking jump shots. You're going to have Christian Brown taking jump shots. You're going to have Russell Westbrook taking jump shots. The Lakers are going to have Rui Hachimura, LeBron James, Dorian Finney-Smith, Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic raining threes. And they're all going to be pretty open. And all of those guys are 40+%, except for Austin. And you tell me how you feel when you're a fan rooting against Austin Reeves when he has a wide open look. Tell me if you think it's going in. I thought it was a really, really well executed game plan. The Lakers battled on the glass. They did a great job of digging down and deflecting the ball away from the bigger Nuggets players. Like, that's the other big chess piece here, right? Is like, can Denver use their size to dominate the Lakers on the glass? They had 12 offensive rebounds. The Lakers had 9. It wasn't a substantial factor in this game. I want to start on defense for Denver, because there's going to have to be something they do. Bringing Jokic up to the level I don't think is going to work. I don't think they're going to be able to stop the Lakers from getting wide open threes if they do that. They were very fortunate in the first half that Gabe, DFS, and Rui were 2 for 11 from 3, and all 11 of them were wide open. And eventually they stuck with that coverage, and in the second half they started going in, and it caused problems. So the two potential routes that we talked about earlier are switching or a deeper drop coverage. I don't think switching would work. I think asking Nikola Jokic to guard on the perimeter against LeBron, Austin, and Luka all night long would be a terrible mistake. So that really leaves it to a deeper drop. And I tweeted this at halftime. I actually think it's possible that Mike Malone is going to hold this for a potential playoff matchup to try to kind of mix things up. What's the difference between a deeper drop and an at-the-level coverage? In an at-the-level coverage, when you bring Jokic up to the level, meaning as the ball handler is coming off the screen, Jokic is waiting there. When you do that, the roller gets behind Jokic. If the roller gets behind Jokic, you're creating a 2-on-1 between the skip pass and the lob pass that Aaron Gordon has to account for. If you sit Jokic deeper back, then Aaron Gordon can stay on that skip pass, and now Jokic can keep the roll man in front. There's a way for Jokic to guard that to where he can force Luka Doncic, force LeBron James, force Austin Reeves to make drop coverage shots. That's a lot of shots in the mid-range, right? Now, to be clear, like I mentioned earlier, that might be the best group of drop coverage attackers that we have in the league. But at least you're making them take contested twos instead of wide open threes when all those dudes are wide open 40+% shooters. We didn't see much deep drop tonight. There was a late possession in the late fourth quarter where Austin Reeves hit a pull-up 3. But again, that's a tough shot. That's what you got to ask yourself. Do you want to watch Austin Reeves take tough contested pull-up 3s and ball screens? Or do you want to watch Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui Hachimura just standing completely wide open at the three-point line all season long, or all series long, right? That's the type of decision that they're going to have to make. I think that's probably their best bet, is to go with the deeper drop. As for the offensive end of the floor, again, there's certain things you can do with your spacing to try to make it so that when Jokic spins, he's got easier reads. They did some stuff with Russell Westbrook in the second half where they had him tee up or like basically cut right in front of the rim so that Jokic would have two cut reads. As he's spinning to the baseline, he has Gordon on the baseline waiting, and he's got Russ right in front of the rim. Do you remember that play where Russ got the layup right by LeBron and then he fell down and slid into camera row? That's a perfect example of that type of sequence where you can try to at least attack it with cutting instead of all of these skip passes to mediocre shooters. But like, I think Jokic is going to have to just start trying to be a bowling ball. He's going to have to just pound and spin off of that first defender, try to go through the double and just get those arms out wide, start hitting bodies, get offensive rebounds and putbacks. Like Jokic is going to have to start trying to attack this as a scorer. I think that's something that they're going to have to look into. They did get good stuff with Jamal Murray. That was an encouraging piece. The Lakers were doing a lot of going under actions with Jamal Murray and just forcing him to make those mildly contested pull-up jump shots, and he was hitting them. I think he hit 6 threes in this game. Again, if you're going to piece together a successful offense, it's got to be multiple different things you can do. The Jamal Murray stuff worked. I thought Michael Porter Jr. got some decent looks coming off of curls that he missed. There's a version of that where more of those go in. You actually hit quite a few shots with your mediocre shooters. You're going to have to get Jokic to provide more scoring pop, though. And the only way he's going to do that is if he looks at the double and says, screw that, I'm trying to score anyway. Really interesting game. We're going to see a lot more from the Lakers and learn a lot more about them in time. Their schedule is brutal at this point. They're going to face a bunch of different types of teams that are going to force their offense to try to shape shift and score in different ways. But I thought that this was kind of a proof of concept tonight that like teams that don't have elite personnel defensively at all 5 positions are going to struggle to guard the Lakers. And if the Lakers score enough, their defense just has to be good enough. And this was a Denver offense that had been annihilating everyone for months, and the Lakers did a great job holding them in check tonight. After 17 games of being the number 1 defense in the NBA, I think it's time to start taking this team seriously as a championship contender. All right, guys, that is all I have for tonight. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. We are taking tomorrow off, but we'll be back on Monday to cover a jam-packed Sunday slate and a bunch of other stuff. I will see you guys then.